So recently my personal computer threw it back too hard and committed ritual suicide. Like straight up, motherboard got fried. I actually don't know what the whole problem is, but you don't give a shit. You saw Dragon Age Origins in the title, we're gonna talk about that, because now I have to play on my crappy laptop that can't run a game that came out after 2010. Luckily for me, Dragon Age Origins just hits the cutoff, just barely. Plus, couple this with the fact that I have to record it with OBS on the same computer, you could easily mistake my Dragon Age gameplay for my recent school presentation that I made in PowerPoint. Just kidding, do you think I'm a pussy? Real men use Google Slides. And me being a real man myself, after I had a mental breakdown after my computer exploded, I said fuck it, we ball, and I hooked up the laptop and I started up Dragon Age Origins, because I was craving some RPG goodness, and who better than Prime BioWare, who made Mass Effect, one of my favorite games ever created. It's truly God's gift to this earth. Now, as incredibly shitty as my intro to this video was, you know what's not incredibly shitty? The intro to this video game. Instantly, the game opens with this suave British man, essentially outlining the history of the Grey Wardens, which is this special group of individual warriors, mages, whoever. They take anybody that is skilled enough, fighting against essentially the armies of hell in this universe. They are most needed when a blight happens, which is essentially the apocalypse of this universe, where these demons, these darkspawn, pour out of the ground, and it's just not a good day. It's just not a good time. So the next blight is beginning, and this guy's been narrating us. Duncan, he is a Grey Warden, one of the last. There's not as many as there once were in this land called Ferelden, which is the country we're in. And since Doom Guy doesn't exist in this universe, he has to come and recruit little old me. Now, the character customization, it's just basic. It's your run-of-the-mill. It's a bunch of presets that you can change and try your best to create someone that doesn't look like some sort of predator. Now, there are 3 races to choose from in this: humans, elves, and dwarves. It's your run-of-the-mill fantasy, and I'm gonna just say it right now, get it out of the way. When it comes to elves in fantasy universes, I'm racist.
What did he say? There's no way out of this one.
So now that that clip has been taken out of context, I would just like to say I just don't like the whole, I don't know, elves to me are always just high and mightier than everyone else, and it rubs me the wrong way. High elves, especially from Skyrim, I hope they all die in Elder Scrolls 6. I hope there's a, I'm not going to say that. I'm actually glad to report Dragon Age Origins, I actually like the elves in this, because they switched the roles up. Elves were enslaved for a long time. They're also short kings, and as a short king myself, I can relate at least a little bit to their struggle. So anyways, I'm getting sidetracked here. By choosing your certain class and your certain race, you are able to choose a different backstory, a life path, if you will, similar to the cyberpunk idea, but it is done so much better here. It's incredible how a game from 2009 outdid a game from 2020. But honestly, now that I say that, I realize it's not that crazy to think about, considering how we've also seen BioWare fall from grace recently.
See? Good enough to eat. Oh, look, an ambulance. Now then.
But I love this mechanic in this game because it just works. It's not like a useless little flavored thing to start the game with like in Cyberpunk. You meet characters in your life path that come up in main story quests, important quests later in the game. They are also longer than 20 minutes. And they also add useless flavor text, but hey, that shouldn't be the main attraction to choosing the life path, and it's not here. The main attraction to these backstories is that it establishes early goals for your character / player and starts them in either areas you can go to in the game or with characters from the main plot that come into play later that are important. For example, my character was a human noble, and this fucker right here, Aro Howe, he's a despicable man. He's one of the main antagonists of the game. He kills your entire family in this intro. And guess what? Later in the game, you interact with him again, you can kill him! For like half the game, you can have dialogue options for this character where he's like, I'm trying to find Aro Howe. I have to make him pay for what he did to me. Certain characters later on will talk to you, or won't talk to you based on your status as a human noble. Elves might think instantly that you're some sort of racist, which might not be entirely off the truth. And human lords, for example, might actually only grant you an audience because they know of your status as a noble. It's not just a cool little 20-minute mission, get your feet wet in the game, then you get some flavored dialogue and a side quest later. This has long-lasting impacts on the decisions that you'll make in the game and how you approach your character. So enough about these backstories. I don't want to go into the plot synopsis of all of them. I think it's better if you experience them on your own, even though I did just spoil the entire human one, my bad. It's still worth going through though. I think it's a really good story, and I think it's great for new players because it gives them such a great goal right off the bat for their character. So the only reason my character escapes is because Duncan, the Grey Warden voicing the intro earlier, was actually already at the castle trying to recruit Grey Wardens. In exchange for protecting our family line, your father essentially sells you to the Grey Wardens. He's like, okay, take my son, draft him, have him fight these demons, just make sure you kill this motherfucker Arl for me. And my character was like,
You what?
so we travel with Duncan, we escape south to Ostagar, where the king is gathering armies to battle the Darkspawn. And it just so happens our brother left for Ostagar to join the king's ranks before everyone in the family got murdered, giving our character another reason to go south with Duncan. Oh, and now you might notice I have a dog with me in this cutscene. I actually got that from the human noble background as well. It's the only one you can get the dog from. Otherwise, you'll get the dog from a side quest in this area. Another reason why the backstories are so good in this game, so well done. And this is when it finally hit me, seeing my character out in the sunlight, how just incredibly messed up I made him look. I shouldn't say that because he doesn't look awful, it's just he doesn't look how I thought he would.
Am I really ugly?
Game, stop making character creators with just the worst lighting possible in the game. Like, just have that on full brightness so I can see every detail. Because not only does he have no eyebrows, he also looks like a weird version of that J-Schlatt filter. Because yes, while he looks like a massive alpha male, he looks like he's made of plastic. Anyways, I'm getting sidetracked for like the 50th time this video. We meet King Kalen, the king of Ferelden, who fits into that stereotypical young naive king who wants his name to be echoed throughout history. He also really likes the Grey Wardens, maybe a little too much. But again, he recognizes our family name, the backstory comes into play. And he promises to deal with Arl. Case closed. Game done. Game over. So now the game really opens up. We can explore the camp at Ostagar, which is essentially just any settlement from any RPG ever. And then it's conjoined with the wilds, which is where all the enemies are and where most of the questing gets done. And this is a formula the game will use many times. You have a safe haven hub world, which is conjoined with a dangerous place where enemies are, where 99% of your questing will get done at. When you get to the camp, I really like the atmosphere. You got soldiers praying, preparing for war, because this might be their last day. And you can also meet some characters that are important later on in the game. Now, speaking of important characters, we have to talk to Alistair, who is a Grey Warden who will take us out into the wilds to gather materials for a ritual called the Joining that will make us fully into a Grey Warden. Alistair, he's a cool guy. He's probably my favorite companion in the game. He's essentially just best bro material. He's a jokester, but you can actually change up his character arc in different ways later in the game, which I really appreciate. Also, he's voiced by the same guy who voiced Flynn in Uncharted 2, so every time he was in my party, I had to resist the urge to say "in like Flynn" 20 times a minute.
Yeah, in like Flynn, right? What? In like Flynn. I don't get it. Just give me a boost.
And he takes us out into the wilds with two other Grey Warden recruits that are so important to the plot that I totally remember their names. And this is just a cool area. You just fight a lot of Darkspawn. And speaking of fighting, I haven't touched on the combat yet. Let's talk about it. It's very similar to KOTOR, or like an MMO style of combat. Your character will attack automatically based on who you target, and then you select different abilities, yada yada yada. You know, I'm not going to bore you to death. Now listen, this isn't the most interesting combat system to me. I still prefer Mass Effect. Turn your brain off, third person action, shooty bang bang, kill everything in sight, brain melting action. But I didn't mind it so much in this game. Most of it I could just brute force my way through. I didn't have to try to strategize, although that's what the game wants you to do. It wants you to take your time, pause, take control of all your companions, tell them what they need to do, and I just didn't have the patience for it, I'm sorry. But I think that if you like this gameplay, there's a lot of fun to be had here. There's a lot of different types of abilities, a lot of different builds, which I really appreciate because I'm all about my gameplay variety. So anyways, we find this abandoned Grey Warden outpost because we have to find some Grey Warden treaties that were signed like 1 billion years ago or something, but they are pledging support to the Grey Wardens in a blight. Surely these won't be important later. So I searched the chest.
And it's gone.
What have we here? Are you a vulture, I wonder? A scavenger, poking amidst a corpse whose bones were long since cleaned? Or merely an intruder, come into these darkspawn-filled wilds of mine in search of easy prey?
Ooh, sorry about that. I don't know who put that clip there. It wasn't me. So anyways, Morrigan here is a witch, and she knows where the treaties went. I was a little nervous talking to her, but I got through it. I powered through. And she takes her to her mother's house. I didn't think we'd be at this stage yet of our relationship, but I'm not gonna complain. So her mother is some super uber powerful witch of the woods. She like steals kids or something and eats them, I don't know. But she did have our treaties, so I thanked her, and we go back to Duncan to watch a super cool cutscene of the Joining where we drink the Darkspawn blood. And he tells us right before, he's like, you could die doing this. So not only did my father sell me to fight demons for the rest of my life, he sold me into an organization that does not even guarantee you make it that far. All because he couldn't stand up for himself and killed his biggest op. Dad, when I see you in hell, it's on sight. So anyways, goon number 1 drinks during the cutscene, he dies. Goon number 2 pussies out and they have to keep this joining a secret so Duncan kills him. And I drink from the chalice and I die. Just kidding, of course I have plot armor. I'm the main character. So we drink from the chalice, we pass out for a little bit, we get some weird dreams. And then when we wake up, it's conveniently timed just for the battle. We meet with the king and a couple other generals, and they send me and Alistair to light a beacon on top of the tower that will signal a flanking maneuver. So Alistair's a little pissed, he wants to fight in the battle with Duncan and the rest of the Grey Wardens and all the soldiers. Me personally, I'm just fine with doing this easy task. So then once we're ready to start the battle, we're treated with one of the best cutscenes I've seen in a game in a long time. I'm not gonna play the whole thing, but I'm gonna play like the really good part that gets me going, sent chills down my spine and my balls and shit.
For Ferelden!
So yeah, that cutscene is awesome, but I'm pissed because when I played on my elf character, take a look at this. Look how much cleaner it is with Alistair instead of the derpy ass dog next to your character. When I first saw this cutscene, I had already been having a fantastic time, but this solidified it that I would experience something truly incredible. Only BioWare, in my experience, has been able to combine this RPG style with cinematic excellence. And it's awesome to see in these RPGs because that's your character as part of the action, part of the cutscene. Instead of, let's say, God of War, which has fantastic spectacle, fantastic cinematics, but it's Kratos. There's a much more of a connection when it's your character involved in these massive cutscenes, these massive events. And I wish more games did this. Alright, let me stop raving about a stupid ass cutscene that doesn't even matter. We gotta get to the tower. And it turns out the tower's actually under attack. The Darkspawn dug under. So now we gotta fight through hordes and hordes of enemies to get to the top of the tower and light the beacon. Just me, Alistair, my dog, and this random mage we found. I don't know his name. He's not really important. And fighting through this tower is the first real experience to what a lot of the engagements in this game are gonna be like, where it's 4 of you, which is heavily outnumbered by a bunch of different enemies. And definitely when it's your first time playing, it can be a bit difficult, even on normal. And of course, I made it even harder because I made it my mission not to pause the game at all, make any strategies with my companions, just brute force my way with my character. But even when we're heavily outnumbered here, I still thought it was balanced. Later in the game, I think there's some really unbalanced fights. But we're not talking about that today. We're talking about this bombastic, beautiful intro. Plus, there are some stakes here. It's a race against time to get to the top of the tower to save as many people as possible so we can win the battle. And when we do get to the top, we're greeted with a boss fight, a giant ogre. Now, the first time I fought him, it took me like an hour. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But once you get a strat down, you just keep the mage out of reach. You learn his moves. He's easy as shit to take out. And overall, it's a really cool fight. He has one bullshit move, the grab move. If you get grabbed by it, you're dead for the rest of the game. That character's perma-dead. But when you finally take him out, it is so satisfying, and it's time to light the beacon and signal for the flanking maneuver. But it never comes because this fucko, Terran Loghain, abandons the king, who proceeds to be the Batman to this ogre's bane. Duncan avenges him, and at first I think he thought we failed, but then he looks up and he sees the tower, and he knows that it was not us, his Grey Wardens, that failed him, but instead that fucking pussy, Terran Loghain, who abandoned us. The battle's lost. Alistair, we gotta get her. Oh shit! I'm actually fucking dead this time. Game over. Okay, enough of that corny ass joke. I wake up to, oh, Morgan by my bedside. Okay. Turns out her mother saved us and they've been treating to our wounds, and me and Alistair are the only 2 Grey Wardens remaining. So then she and him start talking. They're like, you guys gotta use these treaties, gather the armies. And Alistair's like, come on, we gotta do this. And I was like,
We? We?
not sure if you knew this, Alistair. My dad sold me here for a get back he's never gonna get now because Duncan died. But eventually Alistair guilts me into it. As we're about to set off, the last 2 remaining Grey Wardens to stand against the Blight by ourselves. That's one hell of an interesting premise, and I love it. And just before we go, Morrigan's mother, her name's Flemeth, by the way, I didn't say that, sends Morrigan with us before we set out. And much to Morgan's dismay, but me, I was like, yes please, yes, bring her with us, please. So she joins our party, and it's up to us, this unlikely trio, to save the world against the apocalypse. That's just some badass shit. And that's where we're gonna end, because that's where the intro essentially ends. We have to set off and gather these armies to save the world. And this is where you step in because you need to go play this game. It's on Game Pass. It's cheap on Steam whenever there's a Steam sale. I think if you're a fan of RPGs, or maybe not even a fan of RPGs, just a gamer in general, I think you owe it to yourself to experience the plot of this video game and to create your own story with your own Grey Warden. Shit, bro, listen to me. I could have done the commercial for this shit. EA, bro, where's my bag? Where's my bag? If you don't pay me right now, this game's dog shit. You shouldn't play it. Oh, I think that's it. I don't think I forgot anything. Oh shit. I left my brother in Ostagar. Well, anyways,